Ayatollah Ali Khamenei had dominated Iran for nearly 4 decades, shaping the nation with a mixture of ideology, force, and strategic influence. Born in 1939 in Mashhad, he rose from clerical beginnings to become the second supreme leader after Khomeini's death in 1989. Despite initial doubts about his authority, he consolidated power rapidly, controlling the military, judiciary, intelligence services, and state media. His rule extended beyond borders, guiding proxy militias across Lebanon, Iraq, Syria, and Yemen, establishing a regional network intended to counter Western influence and assert Iran as a dominant power. Internally, dissent was met with uncompromising repression. The Green Movement in 2009 and protests following Mahsa Amini's death in 2022 demonstrated the fractures within society. Yet Khamenei's security apparatus, particularly the IRGC, maintained strict control, suppressing uprisings with brutal efficiency. Economically, sanctions and mismanagement stifled growth, but politically, he maintained an iron grip, leveraging ideology to ensure loyalty from key institutions. Internationally, Khamenei positioned Iran as a defiant force, rejecting Western diplomatic overtures while continuing nuclear development and regional interventions. He framed this approach as defensive, portraying Iran as besieged and resilient against foreign threats, rallying nationalist and religious support. His tactics were not only military or political, but also psychological. Through media, speeches, and strategic messaging, he cultivated an image of unyielding strength, projecting both fear and reverence. By 2026, Khamenei had become a symbol of resistance to the West, but his longevity also created vulnerabilities. Centralized decision-making meant that his removal could destabilize the entire system, and his aging leadership raised questions about succession and internal cohesion. His influence over the IRGC and clerical bodies was immense. Yet generational pressures and rising discontent within the populace increasingly challenged the status quo. For adversaries watching closely, these factors presented both risk and opportunity. Years of tension with the United States and Israel had culminated in a pattern of covert operations, cyber attacks, targeted assassinations, and sanctions, gradually weakening Iran's capacity to project power abroad while testing the regime's resilience at home. By the early months of 2026, intelligence assessments indicated that decisive action against the supreme leader could shift the balance of power regionally, offering an unprecedented chance to alter the trajectory of Iran's influence. Khamenei's network was sophisticated, deeply entrenched, and ideologically committed. But it was not impervious to precision strikes informed by detailed intelligence, strategic planning, and years of observation. By February 2026, U.S. and Israeli intelligence had accumulated years of data on Iran's leadership and military infrastructure. Surveillance revealed patterns in the supreme leader's movements, vulnerabilities in Tehran's command network, and critical locations tied to nuclear and missile programs. Analysts noted that Khamenei's reliance on centralized decision-making created a single point of failure. After careful evaluation, military and intelligence planners determined that a coordinated strike could simultaneously neutralize high-value targets and significantly degrade Iran's command capabilities. The operation, meticulously timed and synchronized, combined long-range missiles, precision-guided munitions, electronic warfare, and real-time intelligence feeds. Air and naval assets targeted multiple facilities across the country, striking infrastructure that supported Iran's nuclear, ballistic, and drone programs. The operation's design aimed to overwhelm air defenses and prevent effective counteraction, maximizing the likelihood of achieving strategic objectives while minimizing prolonged conflict. Targeting decisions focused not only on physical destruction, but also on leadership decapitation, understanding that the elimination of Khamenei would create immediate operational and political uncertainty within Iran. Communication lines were monitored and disrupted to prevent coordination among command structures, while intelligence on proxy networks was integrated to anticipate retaliatory moves. In real time, analysts evaluated strike outcomes and adjusted trajectories and munitions deployment to ensure success. By the operation's conclusion, strategic objectives were reportedly achieved. Critical nuclear and missile facilities were destroyed or disabled, and Khamenei, along with several senior advisors, were confirmed to have been killed in the strikes. Following the operation, statements from U.S. and Israeli officials framed the action as both defensive and necessary to prevent imminent threats, emphasizing the elimination of a long-standing source of regional destabilization. Intelligence sources indicated that the operation's success relied on unprecedented coordination between U.S. and Israeli military, intelligence, and cyber divisions. Experts highlighted that years of incremental pressure, covert operations, and intelligence gathering had created the conditions for a strike of this magnitude. While the outcome shocked the international community, the planning and execution reflected calculated precision, leveraging technology, human intelligence, and strategic foresight to remove a highly fortified target. Analysts concluded that the operation's impact extended beyond the immediate strike, signaling a shift in regional power dynamics and demonstrating the capability to conduct targeted, decisive operations against entrenched leadership in one of the most tightly controlled states in the world. The strategic reasoning behind the operation extended beyond the immediate removal of Khamenei. For years, Iran's posture had been a combination of regional assertiveness and internal consolidation, using the IRGC and allied militias to extend influence while insulating core leadership from direct confrontation. U.S. and Israeli analysts recognized that this model depended heavily on centralized authority and disciplined coordination. Removing the supreme leader would not only disrupt decision-making, but also create fractures within the elite power structure. The operation also sent a clear message to regional actors and adversaries. Calculated, intelligence-driven action could overcome even the most fortified leadership networks. Preparations for the strike had relied on extensive monitoring, human intelligence, satellite reconnaissance, and cyber operations, all aimed at mapping vulnerabilities and timing the strike for maximum impact. Analysts highlighted that Iran's missile forces, though capable of rapid retaliation, were unlikely to respond in a coordinated fashion following decapitation, reducing immediate risk to regional allies. The success of the operation demonstrated the effectiveness of integrating intelligence streams with real-time military execution, a model long theorized but rarely applied at this scale. Geopolitically, The removal of Khamenei shifted Iran's internal dynamics, placing pressure on clerical institutions, the IRGC, and political factions to fill a sudden leadership vacuum. Discussions among international powers focused on whether this would prompt escalation or force Tehran toward a more conciliatory posture. Regional allies recalibrated defense strategies, considering both the risk of retaliation and the opportunity to negotiate from a new balance of power. Economically, our markets reacted to the uncertainty, particularly in energy sectors sensitive to disruptions in the Persian Gulf. Analysts emphasized that while the operation achieved tactical success, the long-term strategic outcome remained uncertain, dependent on Iran's ability to reorganize leadership, maintain cohesion, and manage domestic dissent. Intelligence reports suggested that Khamenei's elimination would embolden opposition movements, further challenging entrenched authority, and possibly accelerating shifts in governance. For U.S. and Israeli policymakers, the operation validated years of investment in intelligence capabilities, precision strike capacity, and interagency coordination. It also underscored the risks inherent in confronting a deeply entrenched, ideologically driven state. The consequences of the operation would reverberate for months, potentially years, influencing the calculus of regional actors, global powers, and domestic Iranian politics, marking a turning point in the long-standing confrontation between Iran and Western allies. The immediate aftermath of the operation left Iran in a state of uncertainty. With Khamenei gone, the clerical assembly of experts faced urgent deliberations to appoint a new supreme leader, while internal factions vied for influence. The IRGC, once firmly under Khamenei's command, had to reassess its authority, balance loyalty among competing factions, and maintain domestic control amid rising public discontent. Reports indicated that some hardline elements pushed for retaliation, while pragmatic voices cautioned against escalation that could further destabilize the nation. Internationally, reactions were polarized. U.S. and Israeli officials framed the operation as a decisive blow against a long-standing threat, while global powers critical of unilateral military action condemned it as a breach of sovereignty and warned of potential escalation. Neighboring countries monitored the situation closely, adjusting security and diplomatic strategies to mitigate risk. Markets fluctuated in response to instability in the Persian Gulf, reflecting concern over oil, supply, and regional security. Analysts noted that while the strike had successfully removed a key leadership figure, it also created a volatile power vacuum that could shape Iran's political landscape for years. Internally, generational pressures, economic strain, and social unrest increased, potentially accelerating reforms or fostering greater resistance. The operation demonstrated the effectiveness of intelligence-driven, precision action in achieving strategic objectives, but also highlighted the unpredictable consequences of removing a deeply entrenched leader. The absence of Khamenei required the regime to adapt quickly, potentially decentralizing decision-making or empowering new elites to maintain continuity. Observers emphasized that Iran's regional proxies, while temporarily disoriented, would reassess tactics and alliances, potentially leading to a reconfiguration of influence in the Middle East. The event underscored the interconnectedness of leadership, the military power, and regional politics, showing how the elimination of a central figure could ripple across multiple domains. For the United States and Israel, the operation validated years of strategic planning, intelligence collection, and interagency coordination, while simultaneously forcing policymakers to anticipate a range of immediate and long-term outcomes, from retaliation to diplomatic realignment. Ultimately, the removal of Khamenei marked a historic shift, ending decades of centralized control and initiating a period of profound uncertainty. The world now watched how Iran would navigate leadership transitions, internal dynamics, and its relations with neighbors, with the balance of regional power hanging in the balance. What followed would determine not only Iran's trajectory, but also the strategic posture of global powers invested in the region, setting the stage for a new chapter in Middle Eastern geopolitics.